Hi there, and welcome to Backstage with Speaking Your Brand. I'm your host, Carol Cox. Today, we're going to talk about how to go from a blank page, and I literally mean a blank poster board, to having a signature talk mapped out and then practicing it basically with zero preparation in just one day. Is it possible? Yes, it is, because I have the proof right here with me. These are three of the incredible women who recently joined us for our one-day Speaking Accelerator workshop in Orlando, Florida. I invited them on because I wanted them to share with you what it was like to spend the day with us, what they felt like they were going to do before they got there, what the experience was like, what they learned, and what they're going to do next. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, where they live, what they do, and then we're going to dive into the questions. Lesline Pittman, let me start with you.
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yes, my name is Lesline. I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm going to say here, like as if everybody lives here. And I am a registered nurse who's also a certified yoga instructor, and I show new moms how to put themselves first through yoga.
Fantastic. Monica Mitchell, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, Monica Mitchell. Thanks also for having me. So fun. Such a great follow-up to the event. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm a burnout prevention and recovery coach. I work with women business owners, usually in the service industry, and I help them transition from hustle to harmony.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I know we all need that. And Emma Jones, MD, tell us about where you live and what you do.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am in the Boston area. My name is Emma Jones. Carol said that. I am a physician and have worked with and do continue to work with other healthcare professionals to help them overcome burnout, as well as helping health systems to design their systems so that they're not causing so much burnout.
It's fascinating that the three of you that were available to join me here today all are in burnout and wellness. So clearly this is a hot topic and maybe much needed. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that we all need burnout recovery and assistance so much, but at least we're all talking about it. At least you all are all talking about it and helping others. So Monica, you went through our Thought Leader Academy online program. That was it 2022? I think
it might have been before that. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was definitely a few years ago. And so you had worked with us already. So what prompted you to decide that you wanted to come to Orlando and do this one-day workshop with us?
Well, I had wanted to do one of your in-person workshops even back then. And I ended up closing my business down for a couple of years for a couple of different reasons. And I started my business back up recently. And I just knew, one, I needed a signature talk. Two, I wanted to work with you. And about the same time I made that decision, I got the email promoting the event and I went, so like immediately, there was no question, no doubt. I was ready and excited to jump back in. So
okay, great. Well, then we'll talk in a little bit about what the difference was like working with us online versus in person. Obviously, a Thought Leader Academy is over 8 weeks since it's not just one day, and there's definitely advantages to both different ways of delivery. Emma, let me come to you. So Emma, you and I met through Katrina Skinner, who runs the Women in Pediatrics group, and she's fantastic. She became a client of Speaking Your Brand way back in 2020, and I've done some storytelling workshops for her group. And so we had met, I think actually in person with last year when you were at a conference here in Orlando. So what prompted you to decide that this was the time that you wanted to come do this one-day workshop with us?
Yeah, I think that, yes, we had met. I had done one of those storytelling workshops for the speakers panel on women and peds, and obviously got hooked in the way that you teach to think about talks, with the storytelling and drawing people in and making it much more engaging instead of just the data dump, which is the way I had been trained to talk in academia. So that was very intriguing to me. And then we did get to meet in person when I was doing a book event, and you were there as well. And then the real decision to come to this event was that I'm really kind of intentionally setting my public presence as more of an intention for this year. And so how I'm showing up online in basically every time I'm in front of people speaking, whether that's a 2-minute Instagram reel or a longer teaching video or an in-person, really kind of taking that care so that it's high impact, and that I feel like your approach of, it's not just the words you're saying or the content of your talk, but kind of the way you structure it and the way you weave in the storytelling was really resonating. And a lot of people, when I said I'm going down to Orlando, because I went in for one day, I flew down the night before and I flew back that night. I was in Orlando for less than 24 hours. People are like, this is crazy. Like, you're on stages all the time. You already know how to talk. Why do you even need to do this? And I was like, no, it's not about that. It's like a different way of communicating in a different way. So those were the reasons why it felt like the right time for me to jump in.
All right, great, Emma. Well, I'm so glad that you were there. And Lesline, you're here with us in Orlando, and I know that you know a woman, Brittany Johnson, who had attended the one that we did last fall, and she had encouraged you to come to ours. And so, what finally made the decision for you?
Yeah, because when Brittany encouraged me, like you said, it was last fall. So here we are, like 6 months later, and I was like, you know what? It was actually when Diane came to our last Women on the Rise meeting. I've just lately kind of felt like I'm in I guess, the expert trap, like you like to say, Carol, where I can relate with Emma. As a nurse, you're not even taught to really publicly speak as a nurse, so I'll say that. But I say all that to say I call myself like, I'm a nurse. And it's like, people, they don't really, like, they care about it after they get to know me, you know what I'm saying? But they want to hear, like, from my heart, right? And that's what drew me to what Diane said, what you said, and also what Brittany said. I was like, okay, let me sign up and see what this is about. And yeah.
And was there anything, Lesline, that you were nervous about or curious about before you did the workshop?
Yeah. Though the main thing was only one day. Like, I think that was the biggest thing. Like, one day, like, for real, like, y'all gonna get me together in one day. So even walking in, I still was like, I don't know, like 8 to 5 goes by really quick, and the way that you structured it, after the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting right into this. So
Yeah. And for those of you who are watching this either live or on the replay, and if you're here live or on the replay, say hi to us. So this is our signature talk canvas framework here with the board, which, like I said, was blank when they started. And then we guided them through using our questions and prompts so that they could write on the Post-it notes and the different colors, depending on what they were working on, and lay out their talk from beginning to end. So Monica, I mentioned that you had done our Thought Leader Academy online a few years ago. And we generally do that process with the board in a one-on-one VIP day where either myself or Diane, we're asking you questions, and then we write on all the Post-it notes, and then we lay it all out in that 3-hour time that we're together. And so how did that compare to what you did in the in-person one-day workshop?
It was very similar, where you were giving the prompts and we were, obviously the big difference was we were filling it out instead of you guys. I think the biggest difference was that we had that one-to-one interaction where we were able to just jump in and brainstorm a little bit, and also the interaction with the other people in the workshop. So we would take a little break, and you and Diane were moving around the room. And while that was happening, if we got stuck, I was able to go to Emma and say, Emma, what do you think about this? Or, just anybody else in the group. It was really great to be able to have that extra interaction and perspective that we wouldn't have had just in a Q&A with you two directly.
I did notice that a lot, that not only did Diane and I float around to, again, like, get you unstuck or kind of give you some of our perspective, because we've done this process literally hundreds of times. So it's kind of like, we can like glance at it and zero in, like, oh, move this here, or I think you need to set this up first before this part comes. But then I noticed that you all were getting feedback from each other, which is what I loved seeing. Now, Emma, I remember at the end of the morning before lunch, because we did this work in the morning, I came to look at your board and you talked me through it, and you had the whole thing filled out. I mean, it was so impressive. So how did you feel going through the process, and were you surprised that you got it all filled out?
Yeah, I was, to be quite honest. I mean, I was a little nervous, kind of like Lesline, that, oh, am I really going to be able to do this in this short of a time frame? And also just in a ballroom, like where we have post-it notes and a poster board, right? Like I don't have my books, I don't have my resources that I can go and like pull all my stuff from. So I was really unsure. But it just started coming out. And of course, some of the stories were ones that I've told before. You know, I pulled stuff that I've written about in the book or talked about elsewhere. So that had a little bit of scaffolding. But yeah, it was actually really shocking how well things came together. You talked us through the process really, really well in terms of kind of putting the landmarks in place. Carol teaches a little bit from back to front. So I appreciated that, you know, begin with the end in mind. And so we were knowing where we were going. And then that really helped me kind of think, okay, this will be there. I mean, visionary thinking is what I teach and what I was making the talk about. So to some extent, I just sort of like ate my own cooking. And I was like, if I have to take the visionary lens to this, how do I do that? You know, think big, act small. But that was helpful. Like not having my books and not being able to like Google everything was actually helpful. I was afraid of it, but it did actually free me to get my thoughts organized in what I think is a much better way.
Well, and this is one of the things when I was preparing for the workshop in my notes, I put a note that said basically, we're going to go through this pretty quickly. But because we do that, because we don't want you to overthink. And you need to kind of like get through the process, get through the main elements on the board, and then you could always come back and add more details to stories or add client examples or what have you. Because I feel like so many of the times we get stuck because we are overthinking and like, oh, let me go look at Google. Let me go read my 100 pages of Google Docs, like hand raised that I have kept related to whatever I'm speaking about. But then we never get through the whole thing because we get like analysis paralysis. And so that's why I like either the VIP day process, which is just 3 hours, or this in person, because you really, this is what we always say, Diane and I, is that you know your content and you know your stories. We just give you the structure to get them out of your head and into a format that you can work with. So Lesline, let me come back to you and ask you about after in the morning. So in the morning, everyone mapped out their talk and then we had lunch. And then after lunch, we had you all get on the stage. And well, first we did some improv activities and some improv games. And then we had you actually have 5 minutes each to share a segment of your talk, either a story or say the beginning of your talk. So Leslie, let me first ask you about the improv exercises that we did. Have you ever done improv before? And did you know we were going to do that? And then how did you feel about it?
Mm-hmm. No, I had never done improv before. And like the only thing I know with improv is like whose line is it, anyway, the show. And watching comedy stuff myself, and like you guys share that, which was nice. But I didn't. Brittany did not. She left that detail out. So because I would have been like, what? And after though, I felt so exhilarated. Like it felt like, oh, I can do this. Like I can show up on the stage and think on the spot. Because I feel like like I can speak for myself. Like even though I do put out content on a regular basis, I still be in my head a lot. So this was a really good activity where it was like, you gotta do it. Like Carol and Diane were like, you just come on, just say anything. So that was good.
Yeah, I love the videos of all of you doing the improv because it looks so silly, but that is the point, because I want us to get comfortable, like being silly, not because we're going to be silly when we're standing in front of a stage and, in front of 100 or 500 or more people, but it's more like reminding ourselves that we have bodies that we can use when we're speaking. It's not just staying up in our head. Monica, what about you? How did you feel about the improv? Did you know we were going to do that? And what was the experience like?
I had heard about your previous workshops where you had done it, and I was dreading The whole way down, I was like, she's going to make us do improv. How do I get out of it? Like, I was ready to like, oh, my tummy hurts. But I sucked it up. I got in there. And I think the thing for me was just, it reinforced that it was okay to not be perfect and that nobody was going to die and that nobody, like, even if we laughed because we were having fun. But I think I get in my head a lot about needing to make sure I get things right. And so it just kind of released that for me. And I had fun. I don't want to do it again, but it was fun. And I really appreciated just the love and support from everybody that, we just had fun with it. Nobody got hurt. Nobody died. It was great.
Right. Yes, no, for sure. And Emma, what about you?
Well, I definitely had no idea but I'm not surprised because I have been in other similar venues that are trying to like get over stage fright or just get a little out of your head where improv is been used as a technique. And so it wasn't my first time, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that. I think improv is more fun to do than to watch. When I've gone to improv shows, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure I get it. But when you're actually doing it, it is a lot of fun.
And Emma, so the reason that, and for those of you watching and listening, the reason we do improv again is to remind us that we have bodies, because as high achieving women, especially, like we spend so much time in our heads overthinking, thinking about what is the exact right word that I'm going to say next, or I want to make sure that, whatever I'm saying is perfectly scripted. And of course, improv is the opposite of that. So I deliberately designed the workshop for everyone to do the improv first and then come up and do their 5-minute segment of their talk. So Emma, how did that feel? Did you feel less nervous coming up to do the 5 minutes after that?
Yes, I think that both the improv exercises and then the whole day that we kind of had built some rapport together, and so we had a comfort level to try out something new, and I did share a story that I had never told out loud before, and I know a lot of people did that, so both of those things made it very comfortable of a container to be able to test some things out, which I think was really powerful. And then the other thing that was great about having that like 5 minutes live is that you were giving us feedback. And again, we already felt comfortable we knew that you loved us and you wanted the best for us. So when you were saying, immediately right off the bat, I had been talking for like half a minute and Carol was like, stop, you're swaying. And she had already given a lot of people feedback about like weird movements. So like I wasn't taken off guard by that. And it was really helpful, right? Instead of just like keep swaying through the whole talk. And then she told me at the end. So I did also think that was really, really helpful.
Yes. And the reason we do the 5 minutes is to give you enough time to kind of spin out your story or what have you, but so that we can notice the things that you don't know necessarily that you're doing. And we all do those things, which is why I always recommend recording yourself on video when you do speaking engagements, because either sometimes people sway or they kind of move their feet, but they kind of move it in a way where it's not helpful, right? It's like kind of distracting to the audience, or like people play with their hair quite a bit and they don't even realize that they're doing that. So just little things like that are subconscious. And we want you to feel more comfortable on stage and own the stage and use it to your advantage so that you're making a bigger impact on your audience. Now, Lesline, I know that you had mentioned you had done a vlog on your YouTube channel as you were preparing to come to the workshop, which was so fun to watch that as well. And then you said at some point that, and I can relate to this a lot, that like getting feedback in the moment can sometimes feel hard, like, but share a little bit about what it felt like to get that feedback and what you learned from it.
Yeah, I'm somebody, I don't like feedback. And I know as a high achieving woman, that can be something like, you're not supposed to say that, but I don't. And I can get offended by it. But you and Diane did a good, like I was saying in my vlog too, is like, you guys are the people that are supposed to give me the feedback for this, what I'm doing with speaking. And so when you gave me the feedback, it felt very like, I was very receptive to it because I trust you ladies. And and obviously you guys are both very successful in what you do. But yeah, no, feedback, especially like how Emma was saying, like how they're just like, stop. And you're just like, oh God. But it wasn't like they're just wanting us to be better, and they see our potential, which is also something that's very nice. So I enjoyed the feedback. Like the whole day, everything that you both said was good. It made me feel like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe let me change this instead of saying that, or let me not, touch. I make sure I don't touch my chest, because if there's a mic, like those little things make all of the difference.
Yes. And thank you, Leslie, and to all of you for taking the feedback in stride. And I hope, and this is what we hope to do, is because it's a small group, about 15 women, is that we're creating that kind of safe, supportive environment where by the time you're getting on the stage to practice the 5 minutes, it's around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So we've had all of that 5+ hours together. And to do that, well, actually, though, at the very beginning for introductions in the morning, I had each of you share an embarrassing story on the stage in 1 minute. So that's how we roll. Like, we get you on the stage right away. Now everyone knows now who's listening to this, they're going to know how to prepare for it. So we're going to change it up for next time. All right. So Monica, let me come to you for talk about your 5-minute practice session. Now, here's the thing: is for those of you listening and watching, is that when the women came up to do their 5-minute session segment, they had no notes, no slides, no script, no little like papers that they're holding on to. They weren't even looking at their board that they had been working on. Because like I said, your content and your stories. And Monica, when you did your 5 minutes, it was flawless. Like it just streamed out of you. And you remember coming onto the stage, and I was like, is that the first time you've said, like, you've given this before? And you're like, no, that was the first time. So tell me about that.
I'm crying just thinking about it, because I think you guys just created such an amazing environment to share our passion and our gifts, and to put that into words, and to create the environment where we felt safe and comfortable and confident sharing it with other people. That, I have changed my business. So this is a new kind of focus and a new program for me. So I came in completely unprepared, completely from scratch, and, had my outline, but hadn't really practiced any of what I was saying. So I got up and I was like, y'all just bear with me. And I was terrified. I was just shaking in my boots. But because we had already laughed, because we had already bonded, because we had already gotten feedback, and I knew nobody was going to die if I said something wrong, I just kind of went for it and just shared. And I think I kind of blacked out for a few minutes. I don't remember it at all. But I just remember feeling so proud at the end of it, and just safe. I think that was really the biggest thing for me. It was just safe to, even though I wasn't prepared, even though I wasn't, or I didn't feel prepared, even though it was brand new material, and I was just able to share from my heart, and it felt safe. And so that was my takeaway from it.
Well, I feel like if you can do that well, you can basically get in front of any group and be totally fine.
We'll see.
Emma, let me come to you now. So again, you mapped out your whole board. It was beautiful. And then you said that you had shared a story for the first time in your 5-minute segment. So why did you decide to share that particular story? And then how did it feel to go up there with, no notes or anything to go on?
Yeah, the choice of the story was intentional. Why did I choose to put it in the talk was a little bit of that just kind of like magical moment, kind of like Monica was talking about. Like, I don't know, it just sort of came to me like this story belongs here. And the choice to use my 5 minutes to tell that story, really, I wanted to get the value of the feedback, and telling something that might be a little bit hard to tell. I was telling a story about a way that I thought I was doing something right, and it ended up being something wrong. And the way that the harms came of that. And, I don't know that I nailed it on the stage in the 5 minutes, but I got it out in some version of it that started to take shape of like, why am I telling this story? What am I actually trying to say? What details are necessary versus what details are superfluous? And I wanted to kind of wrangle with that around that story in particular, because it is a central message. That the central message of the story I was telling was that I thought I was being a good doctor by being constantly available to my patients and giving them my cell phone number and not making them see any of my partners or anything like that. And that ended up resulting in a patient abandonment. And that because so much of what I teach is about the need for boundary setting and for sort of calling out that martyrdom, I wanted to have like a really clear story that was true and vulnerable, and that like, I know I really lived this. I'm not just preachy here.
And I remember your story, and that you were at Disney World and what happened, because we remember stories. So I remember your story, and then I remember the lesson from it. And so that's why, especially the personal stories are so powerful, because they connect you with your audience. They build a sense of trust and rapport, and that you're showing that your audience is not alone, that they're not the only ones experiencing, especially for all of us, again, who have degrees and credentials, and we are up there as the expert authorities. And a lot of times the audience is like, she's not going to understand where I'm at, or she's not going to understand what I'm been going through or have gone through. But when you share a story like that, and then you draw the lesson for the audience, or they take a lesson from it, then all of a sudden they buy into the rest of your talk. Everything else you're going to share with them, they're much more aligned. They feel much more aligned with it. Lesline, what about you? You shared also a very personal, heartfelt story in your practice session. Why did you decide to share that one, and how did it feel?
Yeah, I wanted to share that story, and the same thing that you already pretty much said. I just want like more women to be seen, and it's interesting because I've shared that story before, but being more prepared, and the tools you guys gave me, it's still like a hard story for me to share, because I didn't know you all, and I don't know how you're going to receive me, and there's all those things that I say in my head. But I'm glad that I shared it, so.
Yes. Well, I am glad too. And I know all the women there were glad as well. Did any of you experience what we call a vulnerability hangover after the workshop? Yes? Okay. So Monica, tell me about that.
I just went home and took a nap. I went back to my B&B and I just like face down and I just like passed out for a couple of hours.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. Yeah, it was a long day. Lots of food though. We kept you fed. That's for sure.
We did. We were definitely
I was like,
fueled.
Please go eat more food over there. All right, Lesline, you raised your hand about the vulnerability hangover.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, because it's like right after I was on a high, but that night I was so tired. Like even the next day, I was just like, why am I so tired? Like I didn't work out, but no, it was a vulnerability hangover is the perfect phrase to say for sure. And I think also because that story that I shared, like with my motherhood journey, even though it happened 5 years ago, and I've grown and evolved, it's still a little part of me that like is still healing through that. And just like the judgment, I think that's also what it is. Like when you share a personal story, being a thought leader, being an expert like we all are, you're afraid that like you're gonna get judged. But like you mentioned, that's how your audience will connect with you, which like as a healthcare professional, that kind of makes me like, wait a minute, you're saying I got to be vulnerable with my patients? Like that doesn't make sense, but it does, because it really does help people remember and relate. I feel like that's the biggest thing. And that's what, for me, the audience that I'm talking to, I want them to be able to relate to me and not feel like I'm up here and you're down there. Like I never want people to feel like that, because I know how that feels.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I remember the other women who shared very personal stories, and some of them for the first time to anyone other than maybe, their close family members. And we had a discussion about this idea that your audience has to have earned your vulnerability. So that particular audience, because you may have a story in your talk, and you may go, and I say this, you may go to an event and you kind of get the vibe like, don't really know if this audience is quite aligned, or maybe there's something else kind of going on and it just doesn't feel like the right place, the right group of people to share maybe the really vulnerable details of the story. So you can kind of still include the story, but just kind of, give it kind of the broad brush to get to your next point or get to your lesson. Versus another audience you may be in front of, and you feel like this audience will get it. They'll understand it, and they will appreciate it in the sense that it will help them in their own journey as well, because they have earned your vulnerability. So Emma, let me come to you and either ask you anything about this idea of vulnerability hangovers or audiences earning your vulnerability, or if you want to share what was your big takeaway from the workshop from the day.
Yes, I didn't have to experience the vulnerability hangover because we didn't put it out into the world yet. I will once this story becomes out there and then responses happen. That's, I'm sure, when the like, oh Lord, what did I do, will set in. But one of the biggest ahas for me was somewhere when we were mapping out the talk, we had to write like some kind of a challenging belief or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the prompt was. And I wrote one that was like, people need boundaries. And then I wrote another one that was like, because they are self-righteous and martyrs. And when I read it out loud, I like wanted to hide under my desk because I was like, it's so judgmental and I don't want to say that. And then everybody in the room was like, yes, that's it. That's what you need to be saying. So that was kind of where my like little vulnerability poke came, that like my true belief about the way I see the situation needed to be revealed. Whereas I'd prefer to kind of keep that under wraps and say like, oh, it's just, just do these behaviors and then everything will be fine, but like really saying like, I see you. And then that led to the story because like, I can see you because I'm also seeing me. Like I was there too.
Yes.
And you gave that good piece of advice that if we tell our own story that we committed the same sin, then it will make it less preachy and more connecting.
Exactly. Because if you go in front of an audience and basically like wag your finger, like you all are self-righteous and want to be martyrs, right? It's not, your audience is going to not really be very receptive to that. But if you say like, I felt like a martyr and I kind of liked it until I realized it was harming me, right? My own boundaries and the patients that I was caring for.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Emma. Lesline, what was your biggest takeaway from the workshop?
Oh, that's a good question. My biggest takeaway would be stop overthinking. Like just you ladies. The biggest takeaway actually, it might be different than what I said on the vlog, but like right now, as you ask me, is like I already know this, like the story, like what you said in the beginning of this conversation is like, I know my story. Like nobody can tell my story but me. And there are people out there that need to hear it from me. And with also, oh, there was something else that you said and it slipped my mind. It'll come back eventually. But yeah, my story needs to be told. Like that's the biggest thing. And my story matters. Cause I think that's something too is, that's what it is. That like, I also am this like thing of, other people are already talking about yoga for new moms. Like there's already other people doing the thing. Like why do I need to share it? Susie already knows about this, but no, Susie doesn't know. Like her algorithm is completely different than my algorithm. Like obviously I'm going to be seeing yoga stuff all day because of what I do, right? So getting out of that, like, okay, I need to share this. Even if I'm seeing it, I need to share this because there are people that are following me that don't know about breathing and stretching and the benefits, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And they, for whatever reason, they're drawn to you, who you are, versus other people are drawn to someone else who maybe does similar things. But that's also where your stories come in, like your hard-won life lessons, the personal experiences to share like why you yourself are drawn to yoga and what it has done for you. Monica, what was your number one takeaway from the workshop?
I was right in line with Leslie. That was exactly what I was going to say. I remember having the conversation with you when we were working on my board, saying, I mean, this is just common sense. Like everybody knows this. There's 3 other burnout people here. Everybody knows about burnout. Like what am I sharing that's different? And it was the exact same conversation. It was just, the different perspective, the different tone, the different experience, all of those things. And so, yeah, I exactly the same. Overthinking, and then my message does matter, and there are people that need to hear it. So
Well, even just in this conversation here, all three of you talk about burnout and wellness, but in to different audiences and very different ways, very different frameworks and content and stories. And so even though the umbrella topic seems the same, it's dramatically different under the surface. Yeah. All right. So Lesline, what is next for you? What are you doing speaking and visibility wise?
Posting my content on social media. So continuing to show up boldly and loudly on social media. Yeah, that's it for now.
All right. How about pitching yourself for some conferences
Oh,
to speak at?
Yes, pitching myself so that I can do more speaking opportunities and sharing my story, to new moms and working moms. So yeah, pitching myself for sure.
Okay, great. Emma, what's next for you? What are you working on?
I am working on building my online presence in multiple channels through the social media, primarily getting people out there. I'm building a course called Healthcare Visionary Academy so that I can teach more healthcare workers how to think in a visionary way and give them the skills to do that. And then, I'd love to pitch and get on some sort of healthcare conferences or speak at hospitals. That's sort of where I'm looking to the rooms that I want to get in, if you will. And I think all of that through the social media presence will get my name out there so that when people are looking for that, they'll know to look for me. And all of this storytelling works very well for those formats. The structure that you give us about how to think about a talk I find it can work very well for like any type of format. So I'm just using that and repatterning it. And my signature talk is going to be a webinar very soon.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have to let me know because I would love to be able to see it. Monica, so what are you working on, speaking of visibility wise and in your business?
I'm just going to copy them. I am looking for, I'm starting to work on developing some relationships with strategic partners to support their businesses by offering my services. Looking for podcasts, speaking engagements, conferences, etc. Just want to show off my new talk, and hopefully, share my passion and gift and experience to help others. But at the same time, I'm rolling out. I just started promoting my new program, the From Hustle to Harmony, and I'm starting to pick up some clients and do my work there. So I'm really excited about that.
Wonderful. Well, make sure to connect with Lesline, Emma, and Monica on LinkedIn. Follow them there. Check out their websites as well. And thank you so much for being here on Backstage with Speaking Your Brand. And thank you so much for being part of our Speaking Your Brand community. I love it when I see you all interacting on LinkedIn and supporting each other. We've had women in our community who are meet up because they happen to be in the same city or who have gone and flown to a speaking engagement that one of the other women in the community is speaking at. So I just loved seeing you all come together and support each other. So thank you so much. And for those of you watching and listening, if you would like to join us at our next one-day Speaking Accelerator in Orlando, go to speakingyourbrand.com/Orlando. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/Orlando. Get on the interest list. So when we announce our next date for this fall, you'll be the first to know. Until next time, thanks for watching.